This is the Digital Key, Season 2, Chapter 5. In this episode, we will be talking about how the system switches between the digital and analog stream. In the last two episodes, we talked about hierarchical compulsion leading to acquiescence. In that arrangement, a hierarchical superior intervenes within a substitution event to prevent infinite recursion. In this episode, we will be talking about how following infinite recursion, tautological flow reasserts itself. To reiterate, tautological flow involves the trendsetter acting out the impulse for the first follower, then the first follower acting out the impulse for the second, and so on and so forth. This occurs by virtue of reverse substitution events, which sees the digital structure becoming analog. To reiterate, a reverse substitution event occurs when acquiescence is followed by negation. Just as a substitution event is where negation is followed by acquiescence. Tautological flow enables the trendsetter to act out the impulse for the follower, which ultimately leads to recurrence of that impulse and the goal of no negation. But frequently negation follows acquiescence by virtue of the follower failing to integrate that impulse. When the impulse is integrated, reverse substitution leads to a continuous stream of digital structures with no intervening analog structures, called the digital stream. Whereas, in substitution events, and specifically infinite recursion, we see the proliferation of analog structures describing each sequential path of negation. In the last episode, we indicated that the compulsion by a superior entails that superior becoming the embodiment of the not-set impulse in the original digital structure. That is, in the original digital structure, which leads to a substitution event, there is an impulse which is negated, say impulse 1, which leads to sublimation and infinite recursion. The not-set of 1, the impulse subject to affirmation, is assumed hierarchically by the superior, compelling acquiescence as the force which reacts to the sequential negation of infinite recursion. This occurs by virtue of hierarchical priority. So, depending upon the nature of the verbalization following sublimation, a specific domain will provide the entrance point for hierarchical priority. Tautology can also follow infinite recursion through the reverse process. Namely, in this case, the trendsetter is the negating individual within infinite recursion. The follower is someone who has the same impulse as the trendsetter, which was originally negated. In this arrangement, the follower assumes the negated impulse by virtue of the tautological flow, which is then presented to the trendsetter. Often, tautology intervenes after acquiescence, so after the conclusion of the substitution event, in which case the trendsetter affirms the negated impulse for the follower leading to acquiescence for the follower. In other words, whereas in hierarchical compulsion, the hierarchically superior becomes the not set, under tautology, the follower becomes the negated impulse, say impulse 1. By virtue of the hierarchical compulsion, and through reverse substitution, the trendsetter then acts out the impulse for the follower. Following this and by virtue of the circular nature of tautological flow, the follower now becomes the trendsetter such that when the originally negated impulse reoccurs, the follower acts out the impulse for the former trendsetter. Thus, tautological flow prevents a second substitution event related to the same negated impulse. It does this by forcing the trendsetter to affirm another in the place of himself or herself. Under hierarchical compulsion, the superior becomes the not set. Under tautological compulsion, the follower becomes the set in the place of the trendsetter. You can observe the switch between digital and analog streams through interactions with others. Although hierarchical compulsion compels acquiescence, it doesn't integrate the impulse over which compulsion acts. That can only be accomplished by reverse substitution under tautological flow. This means that substitution events will recur in response to that negated impulse, perpetuating the analog stream in the experience of the trendsetter. It is only through tautology that another opportunity for integration is given to the trendsetter, resulting in the digital stream becoming dominant. In terms of nonlinear intersections, participation in the digital stream sees affirmation being the primary quality of these intersections. whereas participation in the analog stream sees compulsion being the primary quality. That's the end of the podcast for today.